everyone, this is Kelly and I'm here to take a look at the Ancestral Oracle of the Celts by Caitlin Matthews. It says call on your ancestors for guidance, help, and healing, and the illustrations are by Will Kinghen. I just want to slip this in here real quick. I know this is actually at the end of everything, but I did want to point out that this, as I thought, this is a republishing, but it was actually under a different name, which I had seen an older version of this. And it says it was first published as Using the Celtic Wisdom Oracle in 2011. So that is, and then of course this is 2019. I think this is available for getting at least in the US on Amazon on the 11th or something like that, so in the next couple days. But it is a republishing of the Celtic Wisdom Oracle. I think the Ancestral Oracle of the Celts works really well. They both work fine, but it is very ancestral based. And so I can understand why that name changed, because I do think it really hones in on what the focus of the deck is. So anyways, I just want to slide that in here somewhere. Now, one of my favorite decks that I use all of the time is the Shaman's Oracle. And this was done with John Matthews and Will Kinghen. So obviously they work together, which is lovely to have that coming together. From what I understand, this is a republishing. We'll look at the dates in just a little bit. But actually, a lady from Watkins Publishing, which this is a deck from, messaged me whether or not I would be interested in taking a look at this. And I said, Ancestral Oracle? Yes. Connected with the Celts? Yes. Like, this is right down my path of my tradition, and I would love to take a look at it. To be honest, I thought I had gotten lost in the mail. It just didn't come, and I thought, oh, I either just didn't send it or it got lost in the mail, and it just showed up recently. And there's something really exciting about this deck that I am definitely has me excited to do a conversation about this. Now, I don't know if, yes, this is, this deck, the Shaman's Oracle, is also, which I've done a walkthrough of, is also from Watkins Press. Now, I love their boxes. The Shaman's Oracle is similar to this, so I love that aspect of it. And here we have the cards. These cards actually feel, I don't know if these might feel a little bit better than my Shaman's Oracle cards. I'll have to pull them out. I will say that's one of the things I love. The Shaman's Oracle. I use it. It's probably one of my most used Oracle decks. I definitely have a backup of it because the cardstock isn't super great, and of course they're not super expensive decks either. It's just kind of one of those trade-offs. But I have a backup because I know, because I use it hard, because it's something I use all the time. This one actually feels, I don't know, I think it still has I don't know, if it feels different. I'm going to pull out my deck because I was actually just using it. This has a smoother feel to it, so I don't know what that's going to mean in terms of holding the cardstock holding up perhaps a little bit better. So that's one of the downsides, but I love the systems that seem to come out of this publishing house, and so sometimes those are the things that we have to take. This intrigues me so much. So I do love the Matthews, both John and Caitlin. I feel like when I get anything that has their name on it, that I'm getting something that is very well researched. But John Matthews in particular will often have, you know, a large bibliography of text behind it. They've definitely done a lot of writing and a lot of information surrounding Celtic lore. John Matthews' Celtic Shaman is one of my core books that I keep as part and parcel of my, you know, how I see the world. It kind of is a reference that I keep there. I love Caitlin Matthews' Lenormand book. It's one of my favorite of the Lenormand books that are out there. So they are people that I do really enjoy and tend to pay attention when I see their names on things. And what I love about this, and I'm so excited when I just kind of skimmed through the cards themselves and started to see this perfect balance of masculine and feminine energy, that I got really excited because you just don't see this very often. What's interesting is that the clan card, so there's two parts to this this system here. There are these larger horizontal, not larger, they're the same size. There are these larger energies of the, I believe these are called the clan cards. We'll get a little bit closer look at it. And then you have the other system, the other cards that are over here that are portrait mode. And what's interesting is that the different energies, the common ancestors of the clan cards, are taken actually from this cauldron. So it's called the Gunstrup Cauldron, and it was excavated from a Danish bog, in 1891. Originally made in the 1st century BC, it depicts myths, ancestors, and divinities of Europe's ancient past. So that's what I think is really amazing here, because well, actually the clan cards I think are known as all of the 32 cards, but we have the deep ancestors with the divine ancestor cards, and so those are taken from this actual cauldron that existed, that represented some of the myths and ancestors and divinities there, which I think is really fantastic. They also correlate to the 8 directions and to the seasons of the year. In fact, there's a really great graphic here that shows how all of these things connect. So we have all that going on. This is a small book, but let's be honest, so is this. They're the same size, because they're the same size boxes. This does have color in it, but while, you know, there's not a ton of pages here, there's 87 pages before you get to this. It packs a wallop. It has everything that I need in it, and I use it all of the time. I don't often return to guidebooks, but that one I do. This has some interesting spreads back here, which excites me as well. 87 pages, but my guess is it's going to pack a similar wallop. So we have some spreads and or patterns that are here, where you pick one of the divine ancestors and one of the clan cards. A 3 candle spread, which is, again, I quite like these nature, truth, and knowledge cards here. There is a grandparent spread with how you'd read this. There is a gift of the seasons spread as well. So there's a number of spreads, and then there is more information in the back and how you can use the deck to kind of make a constellation of ancestors outward. So there's a lot here for a very small book, which is again what I found with the Shaman's Oracle Guidebook as well. Now, it says here, the 8 divine ancestors described in this chapter, because we're talking about these here, represent the deeper mythic archetypes that support the human Celtic ancestors of the clan cards. The images of these cards are all found on the Gunstrup cauldron, a silver votive cauldron found in Denmark and dating from the 1st century. They provide an iconographic guide to primary divine powers of pan-European Celtic traditions, revealing themselves as well-known divinities of Celtic myth, some of which were given in the pages that follow. It is believed that the cauldron was of Thracian workmanship made for a Celtic patron, probably in southwest Romania or northwest Bulgaria. It isn't known how it reached Denmark. So we have that going on, and so we have each one of those, and we're going to look at those. But you'll see right away that they are split into the Lord and Lady of Light, Life. I'm sorry, the Lady and Lord of Light, the Lady and Lord of Love, the Lady and Lord of Lore. So we have 4 sets of ladies and lords. And then that brings us to the clan cards. And so they describe the clan cards as depicting some of the commonly shared human ancestors of our bloodlines. So if this is the divine ancestors, looking at divinity and myth and lore as part of our ancestry, versus something that is separate than we, but a part of a divine ancestry, and then looking at the more shared human ancestors in our bloodlines. There are 4 clans or families, 16 male ancestors and 16 female ancestors gathered about the seasons of the year. They each have a simple descriptive title about their function and do not specifically represent particularly named personalities, although there are exemplars embodying these functions in Celtic myth, who are briefly indicated in each entry. So there are 4 clans which are represented by color, and this color coding is something that was also in the Celtic Shaman. What I do like about the borders here is that because the cardstock isn't the best, I used my Celtic Shaman until it started to get chippy and not great, and then I cut the colored borders off, which then revitalized the deck. And then when that chips up, but that's how much I love it, right? Again, this does actually feel like this might be a little bit different than the cardstock of that, so I'll see when I shuffle it, because I sure have shuffled my other deck a lot. You know, and I know that cardstock is something that is important to all of us, including myself. But then at the other hand, there are some decks that I love irregardless of the cardstock. So while that is certainly an experience of mine in terms of the cardstock for these, it hasn't stopped me from using the really amazing systems, and I have a feeling this is going to be similar for me. Anyways, there are 4 colors here: the green, the orange, the purple, and the red. And they are the clan of truth. They are the clan of honor, the clan of sovereignty, and the clans of wisdom. And then they are also, you have a other set ways in which these are broken down, in which they are youths, young adults, mature adults, and elders. So you have the masculine and feminine aspect, but you also have throughout the different seasons, but also the seasons of life and the way that we progress from youth to young adults to mature adults, and then as into elders. So I think that that's really powerful. And then of course it goes into each one. There's a thumbnail. It's not in color, but it does have the diesel, which is if it's in its upright position, and the twathel, which is when it is reversed. It does talk about this here, that each clan card can be read for upright or reversed oracles, which not a lot of times oracles don't do that, but this one can. If your cards fall upright, then read the Dysel, and I'm not sure how to say that correctly. For any cards that fall in the reversed way, read the Twathel, or Dwathel, like Dwatha Dan, and I'm not Twatha D Dan in there. Dysel is Irish for sunwise or to the right, and Twathel for against the sun or to the left. It doesn't indicate any sinister influence when cards are Twathel or reversed, just that the answer to your oracle is more truthfully found here. Each entry shows the position of the card on the sun circle, the background to each clan member, the upright and reverse oracles, and the family wisdom represented by each ancestor, which is all the information that we have here. And then, of course, it goes into reweaving the web. I love this idea of remembering our ancestors. This quote here I also like, which is by Arita Pikla Blumenstein, a Yepik grandmother. The past is not a burden. It is a scaffold which brought us to this day. We are free to be who we are, to create our own life out of our past and out of our present. We are our ancestors. When we can heal ourselves, we also heal our ancestors, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, and our children. When we heal ourselves, we heal Mother Earth. It really does speak to that understanding that time is not quite so linear, which is what I believe. So anyways, I have already had taken a look at this, and it's similar to me again, with a lot of information that is packed into a small space, and done quite well in doing so. There's a lot going on here, and we might come back and take a look at that. We can see the different clans. So for example, we have Winter Solstice, which is associated with the Lord of Lore, and then underneath that we have from each of the clans which ones are for that season. Again, we'll take a look at that after we look at the rest of the cards. So let's do that. Okay, so let's take a look at the cards. I'm really intrigued and interested in the system, and so let's take a look at these cards. I'm gonna do the horizontal cards first, so let's zoom in here. And let me pull out the book here. So again, these were, this is an actual cauldron that they found, which I think is just really cool. I really love this. I'm also going to find my glasses. So with the divine ancestors, we have quite a bit of information. Again, they do a good job putting a lot of information in a small space. We have the Lady of Life, so we do see a thumbnail of the card. We have a family gift. I bestowed the gift of receiving and empowering energy. The ability to enter into the heart of things is yours. Then we have, if it's a general attitude, oh my goodness, let me turn my phone off. What is the foundation of the matter? What or who needs support? I like that there's questions here. For work or creativity, where can your greatest gifts and abilities be used to the best? What is drawing you out of yourself? Health and well-being, love and friendship. So I like the questions there. It makes you kind of think why this might be showing up. And then there is a paragraph about the Lady of Life. The Lady of Life oversees the time when germinated seeds show their tender shoots, just as ideas that have been conceived in secret are ready to be sown. A young man wrestling a lion stands on her right shoulder, while a young woman leaps or dances on her left. The Lady of Life helps us clutch life's possibilities by engaging more deeply with the gift of life itself. When we know and respect our own animal nature, we can be in touch with our instincts, and so live with a better sense of connection. She teaches us how to walk side by side with the animal spirit that exemplifies our vitality and enhances the messages we receive from them, so we can live without fear. The pan-Celtic goddess Brigantia is the midwife and fosterer who looks after all young things and supports their development. She delights in their play and encourages their explorations. Her mentoring and care develops whatever gifts are potentially sown in us. So then we see it's the sun circle it's the northeast, so we know the direction. The growth is a seeding, it's the seeding point, and the quality is of conception. So we have that for each one of the divine ancestors. And you can see here the images that are over her shoulder, and so on and so forth. I love this little bird that's up here on the branch. So that's the Lady of Life. And then, as if with all of the cards in this deck, there is a masculine and feminine counterpoint. So here we have the Lord of Life here. And this governs the growing influence. So if this is when the seeding is occurring, then this is when the growing portion. And we can see this little spark here with a much larger spark of light here in this labyrinth energy that is here. Then we move to the light. Here we have the Lady of Light. And she stands in the place of initiation as the flowers blossom and the fruits begin to set. So again, we're kind of moving through the compasses of the directions, but we're also moving through the seasons, and we're also moving through the growing cycle. And so now we have things that are growing tall, and the flowers are coming in. Next we have the Lord of Light. He helps us to see with clear vision, enabling us to be strong and resourceful. So this is a growth point in which the light is at its strongest. The sun is at the strongest point. I would suppose, let's take a look, in looking at the sun, I would suppose that the summer source, so the summer solstice is connected with the Lord of Light, being when the sun is the strongest, so that makes sense. Next we have the Lady of Love. This is the harvest part of the growing cycle. The Lady of Love oversees the bringing in of the harvest. Her loving bounty is undiminished, for it is ever-renewing source. And it talks about, in Celtic myth, the emblem of the bottomless bag, which I love. Coming next would be the Lord of Love. This is when the sun is weaker. And so I'm assuming, again, the Lord of Love is the winter solstice, when the sun is at its weakest point. The Lord of Love is the many-gifted, all-round helper of the tribe. His compassion is fused with a great strength, making him irresistible. He's lifting stags up in his hand. And then I love that she does, in a little write-up, she does talk about the different Celtic myths that it could be types of him. So the resourceful skills of Lugh make him an exemplar Lord of Love, right? So it gives this idea, so we're connecting that with different actual mythic gods and goddesses of the pan-Celtic variety that would go with this particular archetype, although we know with myths and stories there are many different archetypes, there are many different people in the myths and the stories that could fit in this, and it doesn't lock it into any of them on the image itself, which is really nice. Next we have the Lady of Lore, and so this is the ending phase, right? And this is the receiver of all who die and the queen of the ancestors. Oh, I love that. She is the grandmother, whereas we have with the Lord of Lore, he is the king of the ancestors, the Celtic lord of the underworld, associating him with Bran, which definitely makes sense. So those are our divine ancestors. And again, they are horizontal compared to the portraits horizontal to the vertical of the rest of the cards. So let me put those over here. Okay, so now these are the ancestors of our bloodline. And there again are different clans. Clan of Truth, Honor, Sovereignty, and Wisdom. So with the ancestors of our blood, again, we have the upright and the reversed meanings here. We have the wisdom from the family. And then we have the blurb about them. Now, I think that it said that not every one of these is necessarily connected to someone in myths, although quite a few of them are that I've looked at. There's Finn McCool there. So it does seem like quite a lot of them. And she's representing this one as Etain, who after her marriage to the ferryman Mitter is magically transformed by the jealousy of his first wife. So she is pulling in the different stories as well into the bloodline ones as well. So let's see. We can probably move in a little closer even. So here we have the spinner. She carries a spindle of all young girls who have to spin the thread with which to clothe their family or household. And it's that idea of obviously having to learn that skill here as a spinner. The spinner is an innocent whose thread of life will acquire its many-colored dye as she grows up. It's a white color now. And then her counterpart is the lad. He is the untried boy who has no care in the world, sometimes seen as the naive fool. He stands at the spring equinox full of energy. Lots of different symbols and archetypes that go with this sort of young boy energy that can sometimes be bouncing all over the place and not particularly effective at all times. You can see on the cards, this is the emblem of the truth. Of course, we also have the green border, but what's nice, and this was the case with the Shaman's Oracle as well, if you decide to trim this border off here, you then still have the color of the suit in those symbols, and so you are definitely able to still access that information if you just want to trim it because you don't like borders, or if you use it until maybe it gets a little raggedy and then trim it down to give it a second life. Either way, you will still have access to knowing what suit it is in, which is really fantastic. Next we have the shepherdess. She is able to defend her flock against predators with skill and courage. Her unswerving vigilance protects the young lambs as they are born and grow strong. This is about somebody having the skills that they need and really putting your intention focus on what's happening around you. The counterpart for that is the tracker, a scout who can discern the minute signs of the passage of animals. So again, this is about seeing the tracks and scrutinizing what's going on, and then actually acting off of that and moving forward to stealthily figure out what it is that you need to do, paying attention to the signs. The next that we have is the weaver. So we can see that we're changing in age from this youthful energy to this young energy that's here. So we still have this young adult energy that's going on. To now the spinner is more, has turned into being the weaver. She is starting to weave those patterns in, and is starting to know those patterns and work within those patterns with the weaver. Her counterpart then is the older adult, is going to be the protector of the tribe. He is there to set up those protections, to act for people who aren't able to do so, and so we have the protector energy. And then, of course, we have the older energy here with the keeper, first the female as the keeper. And so this is much more the person who knows the relationships and family ties for generation. She is a holder of the memory and connected to the web of life, which we see up here. And her counterpart is the restorer, who knows all the ages of time and keeps a reckoning. When times turn and wisdom is forgotten, he reminds us. He holds the key of tribal remembrance and can open the forgotten pathways to those who need traditional knowledge. And I like how, you can see that, I might be wrong. See, you can see this older man. It's not the same tattoo, but it kind of has that feeling of once he was more in this phase, right? And now he's in a separate phase in his life. Just as we can see the spinner, the person who's getting the wool, the weaver of the wool, and the weaver of the web of the world, right? So we see that sort of pattern play out through the different ages in the cards. So then the next clan is the clan of honor. And here we have the maiden with the distaff and the hanks of linen. She is, again, we're going to the youth. She is just starting her training in the female mysteries. So this is more of a practical nature of doing things. Of course, it has underlyings of both. But here she is just initiated into the mysteries, and her counterpart is the gilly. And apparently a gilly was before an untried young man could be a warrior or anything, he had to serve almost like a page would serve for a night. So we basically have sort of the maiden and the youth energy here, where he's not just playing, he's not just running around doing his things, he is working and doing the skills and working for other warriors so that he can then eventually attain what he's trying to achieve as a warrior. We then move to the mistress, the young adult here. And I'm assuming the next one will be the mother. So we have the maiden, the mistress, and the mother, and then maybe the crone at the end. Not sure how that's going to go, but that's beautiful. And again, a lot of them, are attached to actual myths, and gives a little bit of a blurb of the myth, which is nice because at least orients you. Obviously, if this is a deck that interests you, you're probably already interested in Celtic myth, and so you may have other books on those things, or can look those myths up. But at least we've got that reference of where it's coming from, which I really love. And then we have the hunter here. He's hiring out his spirit as a mercenary, trying out his skills before becoming a warrior. So he hasn't become a warrior for the tribe, but he is a hunter. We have a tracker. I was seeing if it was the same. We do have a tracker here, but the focus is on the skill of tracking versus on the hunting itself, and sort of trying oneself before being able to go fully into the clan. Here we have the beautiful mother card. Oops, well, yeah, that's the last. Wait a minute. So did we have the same? Oh no, we're still in the orange. Ignore me. Ignore my brain today. So here we have the mother. We've had the maiden, the mistress, the mother that is here. She has done battle with the pains of childbirth and proudly produced children of her lineage. She is the mother of heroes and heroines, the great bold achievers who inherit their courage from her. This is about a long-term plans coming into fruition, right? We have to wait 9 months, that kind of energy there. And then the counterpart is that warrior. So we've seen the youth. We have seen the one that is, using their skills of tracking. We've seen the ones that are helping out the warriors to learn, testing their skills by going into battle with other people. And then finally, we can see the full Celtic warrior here, who is stepping forward to meet any of the challenges ahead. I do like the paint across the blue. There's definitely that tattooed, almost Pictish feel there, which is pretty cool. I love the crow here as well, or the raven. And then we have the female warrior with the fosterer. Fosterer knows the interweaving energies of love and war. She is responsible for training her foster sons in arms, and her willow wand can give a sharp blow. You see her a lot, and I don't know how to say this I don't know how to pronounce this correctly because I've grown up reading it. So I've always seen it as Scathic, but I'm sure that's not the way that you would say it. But she was a formidable female teacher of warriors in Celtic mythology. So I really love that she is here. She takes on and fosters and teaches the warriors that are going to come ahead. We have the commander who has, you know, really this idea of strategy is come into full fruition here, to be able to negotiate, to be able to strategize, to be able to at times avoid battle as well as engage in battle when necessary. That full-blown commander energy is there. So then the next clan is the clan of sovereignty. So here we have more of the royal clan members here in the princess, who is just learning to appreciate power and its uses at an early age. We have that here. We then have the prince energy that is here, undergoing some tests that have to be done, learning to become a king. But he may not. He may in this culture, it doesn't mean that he will become king if they don't consider him worthy, and so he actually has to prove himself. We have the adultrek here. Adultrek, it says, is the Pictish term for secondary wife. This term refers to the younger secondary wife who does not have the status of the first wife, which is interesting, right? She can keep a young man at heart and keep a man young at heart, and often holds power in the tribe through her husband's love. But such a position also has its ambivalent side. So it uses this as about this idea of having temporary influence, that feeling of maybe feeling like you're second best, feeling. So we do have some shadow archetypes in here where you may not fully feel as if you have achieved or being able to use the full extent of who you are there. We have the Tanesti. Again, not sure. This is the heir apparent to the king that have been elected by the tribe. So just as we had someone facing the challenges to potentially become the king, we have the heir apparent that is here. And he is already serving the will of the tribe and the needs of the man. Again, we see a little bit of shadow here in this aspect of you're really putting a lot of energy into something that you hope to come into fruition, but at the moment you're just putting a lot of effort and a lot of work into something that you are not, you're not the king. Of course, that brings us to the queen and to the king here. And then we go even to the next generation of the queen mother and counselor that is here, and the different roles in which these people would take. And I do think that they're, so far from what I'm seeing, they do a good job about how you might use these, and it seems to be in the hierarchy in this position of purples, there does seem to be a lot of shadow where there are of course light and shadow in all the cards, but there's light and shadow into the use of power, how much power one has, how much power one has to give over to get what one wants. There's a lot of that seems to be sort of built into these this particular suit, which I find to be really interesting. So this brings us into the last suit of the Clan of Wisdom, and of course here is the Seer. I love to see any card. Time there's a Seer card, I always love to see that. And I don't mean that as a joke. This is about seeing and feeling the truth for yourself. She is the gift of sight. For the male counterpart, we have the Brehen. I believe is how that is pronounced, but I could be incorrect there. It's that idea of judgment and justice that would have been seen in the tribes for the male counterpart. we have moving from the seer, female seer, we have going into the initiator. She is the mistress of shape-shifting. She is known by her cauldron, which alchemically changes whatever is put into it. Of course, this is tied into Caradwyn, as well as what the way that she sets Gwion through the whole thing that starts to, in the stories that interchange between her and Gwion. So that's pretty cool. I love all of the animals, like forms coming out of the cauldron. We next have the poet. Of course, very important in the Celtic lore. I would assume this is Taliesin. Yeah, Taliesin's poetic wisdom comes from his initiation by Caradwyn. So he carries the memory of all times, places, and conditions. Love that. We then have the little bit older woman who is the healer, and the little older adult as the prophet. Here I love the stars in the mind. I love the use of the oghams here. Set up in, I believe those are oghams and not runes. I'm assuming so. I can't, even with my glasses, I have a hard time seeing it. He might say. This is, of course, Merlin. I mean, they could be runes given where the cauldron was found, but I suppose. But I'm assuming those are probably oghams here with the prophet. And then we have what is on the front of the book in the box with the beautiful way shower. She is the one who uses dreams to unfold the ways. She looks into her dreams to find the best ways to navigate a given situation. Very powerful with the wheel there. And then, of course, as the sort of pinnacle, we have the druid. So really a lot to love here for me. I mean, this was a no-brainer for me. This was already, I'd seen, or somebody had pointed this out to me, and this was already on my list to look at, because again, I really do love everything that the Matthews do. And so then when I opened the box and I saw this, and I know that not everybody, we had a live chat about talking about the use of masculine and feminine, using gender, male and female, to represent masculine and feminine energy can be problematic. But I think that if you are it doesn't take a lot of work to become open to the understanding that the energy of the spinner can be fully apparent and appropriate in a reading for a male, just as much as the tracker can be something that is fully shown inside the body or the situation of a female. So I think that you just have to be cognizant. But what I really love is that in an oracle world in which we don't have a lot of balance, in my opinion, we don't have a lot of balance, where we may have generally all feminine figures in our decks, and or just a few masculine or male gendered figures and the majority being female figures. That having something, to me, the answer isn't to then have all male decks, which are great. I do have the one. You can't even find very many of those. But the answer for me is that, I would like to see a balance. I've said that over and over again. I would just really love to see a balance between the two, because that's something that I personally work with. It's not important for everybody, but it's something that's important to me. And so to have it that every single counterpart is there. And then we also have in each of the suits, we have that progression of aging as well, so that we have the spinner, the shepherdess is getting older, the weaver is getting older, and the keeper is an elder there. And of course we have that with the lad and the tracker and the protector and the restorer, that we have the maiden, the mistress, the mother, and the powerful fosterer here, as well as then the ghillie, the hunter getting older, the warrior, and then up to that level of commander where it's seeing the bigger picture here. And we see that in the princess and the second wife in the adult trek, the queen and the queen mother, and so on and so forth. So we not only have this perfect balance of masculine, feminine, but we also can see the broad spectrum of ages. And it's not just that, what I love to see is that it's not just that the age means foolish moving to wisdom, because here we have a seer who is very powerful in her own right. And then we have the initiator, again, powerful in her own right, powerful in her own right, very powerful in her own right. So it's not even just a ineffectual youth to wise older person, but the understanding that there is something powerful in all of those different stages as well. So I think that is that's really fantastic, and it excited me greatly when I opened up the package and realized that was the case. So I'm going to go ahead and give these a shuffle. I need to grab my, now this one does say that you can, or obviously you can always, this does give reversals, so you could use the reversals. I tend to just understand, or for me, I tend to come at it that we should be looking at the light and shadow all the time, right? And some of that comes about by positioning, some of that comes out by the question that we're asking, some of it we should just be looking at both those aspects, not just one of the aspects of, oh, well, this is the good side. Well, but where's the part that we might need to watch out for in that situation? So these do feel different. I'm going to grab my, I guess they feel the same. It's the same cardstock as, now I've trimmed this one. One thing that I do like is that even trimming this, it will still be a little bit thinner and a little bit taller than these, although I love this size because I often use ancestor type decks in ancestor readings where I do have a lot of cards going on, and I actually love this version trimmed, so more than likely I would trim this as well. And that is because, now again, if you wanted, and there's nothing on the back to stop you from doing so, this trimmed up really well also. It gives you your clan and your color right in there, and so you don't have to. Now, it's great to have that really stand out so you don't have to think twice about it, but I think that these, for me, I think these images will really pop minus the edges there. And this is also, it looks kind of, I guess it stands out from these, but I will probably be trimming these, is my rambling point, is I will probably trim them and then edge them in their particular color, which is how I had this before I trimmed it. I think I had it all in the different colors. They did the same thing here where you kept the colors there. So I really appreciate, in terms of the publishing company, when they take that extra effort so that color goes into the card itself. So there we have that. Let's take a look at a spread, try a spread out. One of the things that I really like here is that you do have two sections of like reading type spreads. So we have the burning question spread, the 3 candles spread. I really do, this one is one I will definitely be doing. We have nature, what do I keep faith with or leave behind? The truth, how do I keep in balance? The knowledge of what do I need to learn? And then some guidance that is offered by one of the divine ancestor cards. There's also a grandparent spread where you're getting the mother, maternal grandmother, maternal grandfather. You're kind of going into that ancestral line. Again, the solstice spread. So you've got some spreads going on there. But then in the back, she goes into more of really using this to map out your ancestry that I think has some powerful examples and powerful ways just to think about our ancestors and how we can remember our are those connections that we have. So obviously, again, this is something that's just a no-brainer for me because it's something that I work with a lot already. I'm going to shuffle up these Divine Ancestor cards and let's just pull a spread. I'm going to keep the wisdom of the Divine Ancestors. I'm going to keep that one face down for the moment and set that to the side. Now I will say you have to consider that if you trim, these are going to be of a different size than the ancestor cards. So that would possibly be a reason why you would not want to trim them. I don't think that that necessarily stops me from trimming them. In fact, in some ways it makes me more inclined to, because those will stand out quite separately from the rest of them. But that tends to be how, again, I will probably use quite a spread of these, and having things fit is more important to me than anything. For the most part. So then I'm going to pull one for the nature, truth, and knowledge here. I'm going to give these a good shuffle. So the cardstock is just, again, it's not my favorite. It's a bit of, a little bit more of a cardboard feel to it than a great cardstock. But it has not stopped me from my absolute adoration of the Shaman's Oracle, and it won't stop me from this. It's just something to be aware of. So here we have the Mother, the Teneste. I'm going to have to see how to pronounce that correctly. And then the last card we have is the Tracker. And then we'll go ahead and turn this over, and we have the Lord of Light here. So in this particular spread, let me take a look here again. What I like is that she says each position asks a question of you, which I quite like. So the nature is saying, what do I keep faith with or leave behind? So of course here we have the Mother card. Now it's important to find these correctly, because they are in their order. You do need to know what your clans are. We do have clan images, and it does have, which I would just probably bookmark as you get used to until you get used to them. I saw it somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. We have here the different sigils of what they might be. So for example, we have the Clan of Truth with the hawk. Here we have the Clan of Sovereignty, because we do know this is the royalty. And then with the Mother here, we have the Clan of Honor, or the bear, or the boar, I'm sorry. I just love you, Caitlin Matthews, and the Watkins people who made this, because why do we not have table of contents anymore in most of our things? But no, we don't even have to do that. We can simply look up the Mother here and see that it's on page 54. I don't know why that's something going by the wayside, but I greatly appreciate it. So in this position of nature, it's this understanding not to lose focus, that the hopes in your heart, hold on to the hopes of your heart. So this is something that I would want to keep faith with, because I don't want to leave behind. Obviously, in a personal nature, this can be something that is very personal to me and shows up a lot right now in readings for me, the concept of the mother. And so this idea of holding on, even through difficulties, holding on to those lessons that I've learned as a mother. And so we have that there in the nature and the things of that nature, the stuff I can dive into there. The second part is truth, and how do I stay in balance? And here, if you remember, this is the heir apparent. So this is the person who has a lot of work on his hands, but maybe not necessarily, you know, the power of the king, but he has a lot of the work of the king. But this is about making sure that you're using your gifts, that you're putting that work in there, because it's going to pay off in the long run. So to stay in balance, for me, that would be a message, a truth that I need to focus on right now, is that, you know, I'm not at the end game. I haven't accomplished everything that I want to accomplish. I need to just focus on using my gifts, doing what it is that I need to be doing right now, and let tomorrow take care of itself, right? To some degree. So we have that there. And then we have a knowledge position, which is what is it that I need to learn? And here we have the tracker, which is that really keeping, you know, really paying attention to the signs that are around. I'm trying to find the tracker here. I think he's in here. He is. Paying attention to the signs, looking at the evidence around. It's time to learn to change is coming, and in order to not miss out on it, I have to be paying attention. I have to be ready for that, just that right moment. And so a lesson to be learned is to have patience and wait for that right moment, versus just kind of plowing ahead and making a mess out of things. And then underneath it, the guidance piece that's is offered here is with the Lord of Life. Now, one of the things, well, I'll talk about that in a second. The Lord of Life, in general, is talking about understanding what needs to be set free. What is driving my life and what I need to set free and let go of. So that's really beautiful and powerful. The sun is really strong here. It's focused on beginnings, but in order for those beginnings to happen, needing to know what to let go of as well. So then there's a message to be had there. So yeah, I'm really going to enjoy these. Again, there's so much more. Like, you could even be looking at your wheel here, and seeing the way that, okay, well, here I have the mother. So this is in the Lunessa. So do we have any that are, I'm looking to see if we have, here is the tracker and the Tannesty, or the heir apparent here, are both from the same summer solstice Lord of Light. What might some of these things, if they fall under, if there's multiple that are coming under a season, you can bring some of that seasonal thing in there. If there's multiple coming from the same clan, that's why, what's one of the reasons that I love, and I keep bringing this up because I feel that they have a similar, they have suits there for a reason. They're not just random suits, but suits that make sense and make reason. And so bringing in those energies of the suit brings so many different layers that you can add into the equation. So yeah, I'm going to really enjoy working with this. I think I'm going to go ahead and trim these so you can see them trimmed. For those, I know a lot of us watching this do enjoy trimmed decks. Some do not, so you've seen it fully not trimmed. So let's take a peek at what it will look like trimmed. Okay, so here is what it looks like cut. I actually really like it. Again, I really like that we can still see the colors, but she just, I think, just came to life without the borders. Again, this is just personal preference, right? I like the small size because my ancestor readings are generally fairly long height-wise, and they spread out almost like a family tree looking thing. And so I'm used to obviously using a deck this size for it, and so having something that is close in size to this, because I use this a lot. Again, I know this isn't the same deck. It's not even from Caitlin Matthews. It's from John Matthews. But I use this, you know, all the time with Ancestor readings. So it is, you know, so that's why I keep bringing it out, and it's from the same company. So for me, that kind of thing just works, just in case, in terms of the size and in terms of the look of it. I actually really like the look of it. It reduces the size down. You can kind of see the, let's put a different, I guess, color up there. You can see the difference in size there. I'm not going to make these to be the same size because this just keeps those separate, because these are never, at least in the way that their system is being used, you're not shuffling these in with the blood ancestors. So that can simply set, you know, to, oops, I just put stuff everywhere. I just knocked my, it's okay, I need to just vacuum under there anyways. I knocked my corner rounder off the table. But my point is, I'm not going to try to trim these smaller. I actually like that they're different, because this is never just shuffled into the rest of the deck. And so I'm fine with those being different sizes. My intention, let's see here, find a nice orange, kind of a, see what orange is this. These are very similar, if not, yep, those are the same thing, because I think I use these for gold. I think I'll use more of an orange color. We'll just see. Again, if you're coloring an edge, you always, my friend Icy showed me, keep the back towards the pen. You're going to get less of a chance of that going onto the front. And then I just go around it. Now, which markers you use are going to depend on you. I have a lot. These are actually dye-based. No, this one is a Tombow. So I have a mix. Like, these are dye-based La Plumes. This one is a Tombow. And I also will use Sharpies. The Tombows are water-based. I don't have any problem with them coming off in my hand. Some people do, some people don't. I don't. I'm going to use this dark purple here for the purple suit. Now, as I'm edging these, I do end up getting it all over my hands, because I'm flipping it like that while it's still wet. But once, so I'm using that color. All right, we're going to get our colors. For green, this is kind of a, I don't tend to have real bright greens. These are both the same, I think. I must like this particular color, so we'll use this. And obviously I'll have to get more of these done before we can see the effects of this. Many of my decks that are my spiritual path decks, like the Weaver's Oracle, this deck actually was until I trimmed it, and then I just did it all in one. My next one will probably go back to the multicolor, but a lot of them are multicolor, and I quite like them. So there should be one other color, red. Ooh, I don't know if I have a red, to be honest. Red's not a color I actually use a whole lot. Not much of a red person. I have a bright red Sharpie, which is the color, and I definitely have used Sharpies. They're good ones for me. Again, everybody has different mileage. This one has to be trimmed though. So let's trim it. I am a scissor trimmer. Some people like to use guillotines and things like that. It works best for me to trim with a pair of scissors. This is a pretty easy deck. It's just straight borders and there's nothing going on in the back. So it's a pretty simple one. And then I don't actually prefer these little tips of Sharpie markers, so this is not going to be my favorite, but it's not all of them, it's just a set. Yeah, I really don't like that. I prefer a chisel tip, and then the Tombow brush. Those are fine because that gives you enough of an edge to work with. So that gives us all the colors on the edges. So yeah, I'm really actually happy with those trimmed. Do I think it's necessary? Nope, I don't. Is it something that is enjoyable and I get to know the cards? Yep. And I definitely enjoy that aspect of trimming and working with the deck. And so there you go. There you have it. All of the goodies. I'm really looking forward to working with this deck. I love the use of the archetypes. I love the balance, masculine and feminine. I love the connection to Celtic mythology because that's just something that's you know, part of my path. And so yeah, so this is, to me, I'm really excited to take a whirl with this and work with this deck. Okay, I have finished it. You can see all of the colors on the side, and you can see kind of how they ended up looking. I'm really happy with them. Zoom in a little bit here. Just for compactness and reducing some of that brighter colors on the front for me personally. I think they look really fantastic, and I am definitely happy with them. Now, one thing I didn't think about is I need to edge the I need to edge these guys, the biggins. I think I will do, I would do them purple. I will say, if you get this deck and want them all one color, this Tombow 679 I think looks really good. It's hard to tell because I've got them mixed in, but the purple ones, I did that color, and I think it looks really fantastic with the back. So if there wasn't a purple suit, it would have been good to do that as purple. I'm going to do it as this beautiful turquoise. That seems rather divine to me. So I'm just going to run around it. And this is something that you can reapply, remember, if you're someone who likes to trim. But like me, I'm a riffle shuffler, and I'm also a riffle shuffler on wood. This is a rough wood surface, so it's got little chunks here, it's got texture here. This is not a smooth surface, and so, you know, they can definitely be worn. If it's a deck that I'm using a lot, it can definitely get worn, but for the most part, I've not had an issue with it. I have had black decks that I've done in Sharpie marker that I use a lot, and so then you know, I started to get a little bit rough looking, and I just put another coat on it, and I gave it a facelift. But for the most part, I don't mind a deck looking like it's well used. I don't like to see chips and things like that, or where the edging is peeling up and things like that. That tends to bother me because then I want to peel it off, and then that creates all kinds of issues. But just, you know, well worn because it's used, that doesn't bother me. Like you can see even with this one, it's just, I use this a lot, and so the gold on this has actually well, I don't know if this is a gold or if this was more of a brown. I can't remember what I used on this. I was going for this brownie tone. I actually might have done two layers of colors, but it's definitely darkened and aged because I use it a lot, and I'm okay with that. I love the way that looks. So it's mostly just when things are starting to peel or something like that, that it would make, for me, would say, oh, I need to get another deck, because I don't really like to see that peeling. There goes Isabel. But apparently, you know, we're just going to finish up this deck process together. Only one more to go for the Divine Ancestors. Very colorful sides. Again, I don't intend on trimming this. Could you trim this? I mean, it would take some work, right? I wouldn't probably recommend it. If you don't want these to be two different sizes, then I would say just leave these untrimmed, because if you do it to here, you're going to lose significant portions. I mean, you could do just the cauldron without the title and sort of remember, you know, based off of that. That would be the best way to do it if you were going to do that. But to me, I quite like, because I will most likely be using this in this format where I'm pulling, you know, 3 cards like that combined with a cauldron. And so I don't, to me, that's not going to be an issue. And even if this was in the center and all of the things were around it, again, that works. So the size difference for me isn't a problem. If I want to store it on my table, because I'm using it a lot, storing it like that is perfectly fine for me. And then obviously it's going to go back in here just fine with the book on top and slid in, and it's all set to go. So it works fine. I am happy with it. Again, I just thought I'd come back and just show you the finished product. So see you again.